As U.S. President Donald Trump takes his tariff regime to the world, his party is starting to show cracks in its support. Last night, the majority Republican U.S. Senate voted on a resolution to block Trump's tariffs on Canada.
The yeas are 51, the nays are 48. The joint resolution's passed.
4 Republicans joined with Democratic senators, giving them just enough support to send the measure to Congress. So, are doubts growing about Trump's vision, both for the economy and for the United States' place in the world? Joining me now is a co-sponsor of that Senate resolution. Chris Coons is a Democratic senator for Delaware. Senator, welcome back to the show. It's good to see you, sir.
Thanks, David. Great to be on with you again.
You got this through the Senate. It seems unlikely, though, that this will be picked up or passed by the House. What effect do you hope this has on this tariff agenda from the president?
Well, I hope it sends a strong signal to President Trump and his core team that there is bipartisan support for ending the fake emergency that he used as the basis for slapping unjustified tariffs on one of our closest and most vital partners in the world, Canada. And I don't know how it will fare in the House, but there are many states, like my home state of Delaware, where Canada is both our biggest export market and the country from which we import more than any other. Canada is a critical central trading partner for a majority of American states. So my hope is that House members will listen to their angered constituents who complain about these tariffs and move to reverse them.
I don't mean to sound cynical or pessimistic, but I've seen nothing from Speaker Johnson or the other Republicans that is a likely outcome here, right? They seem to be all in on the MAGA agenda the president is pushing here.
That's true. The vast majority of Republicans in the House and Senate are doing whatever it is that President Trump asks them. This is a very disappointing chapter in modern American history. From folks who for decades have been free traders, who voted for or championed Trump's updating of NAFTA, the USMCA, the modernized trade agreement between Canada, the United States, and Mexico that Trump himself signed into law in his first term. If we slap tariffs on all of our close partners and allies around the world, who's going to be interested in a free trade agreement with the United States in the future? And my Republican colleagues have mostly been the champions of free trade in recent decades. It's a stunning about-face.
You know, the Senate resolution rebuked the president's agenda. Canada's hit retaliatory tariffs. The stock market has lost trillions in value over the months, and yet the president persists. So how can he be convinced to change course here?
It may be difficult. Look, this is one of the few real convictions President Trump has. He's been championing the idea of using tariffs to restore American manufacturing for decades. So he is someone who has changed his views on lots of different subjects. This may be one that's difficult to dislodge, but the main markets here have lost 4 or 5% of their value just today. A large reason why President Trump was elected was millions of Americans who were sick of high prices. This was the inflation hangover from the pandemic. And he's done nothing to lower prices. In fact, he's raising prices. Housing costs and grocery costs are a major concern for middle Americans. Yet a majority of the fruits and vegetables we eat in the winter come from Mexico, and a majority of the softwood lumber we need to build housing and the drywall we need to build housing come from Canada and Mexico. So these tariffs will do nothing to help improve the cost of living for middle Americans. He may be getting a double whammy in the months ahead: complaints from constituents who previously supported him and a negative review from the marketplace.
We've heard Howard Lutnick and the president and others say that this is going to repatriate jobs, that the auto tariffs in particular they think will draw industry back to the United States. I know it was about a decade and a bit ago that the Wilmington assembly plant in Delaware closed. Do you think it can work to bring it back? Do you buy this argument that it can rebuild an industry that they say has been lost to other countries?
Look, I've worked hard on trying to strengthen and restore American manufacturing. I spent 8 years working for a global manufacturing company headquartered in Delaware, and I'd like nothing more than to see automobile manufacturing come back to Delaware. But big companies that invest in major manufacturing plants don't make decisions on a whimsical path of slapping on tariffs, pulling them back, putting on tariffs, pulling them back. most major companies will look at this moment with Donald Trump and question whether these tariffs will really stay in place all that long. It takes years to plan, to invest in buying the site, to build the new facility. I'm not sure we're going to see a significant increase in manufacturing as a result of these tariffs. And I did see one thing that happened yesterday that made me even more skeptical. There is a nationwide program here called the Manufacturing Extension Partnership that helps small and medium manufacturers be competitive and successful. And Trump's Department of Commerce just defunded it yesterday. So I'm not sure how serious they really are about good policy on manufacturing.
You know, we're talking about sort of the continent, certainly the bilateral trading relationship and more broadly the continental trading relationship. But what we saw yesterday were tariffs kind of scattershot right around the globe. You know, 20% on the European Union, 10% on the United Kingdom, even tariffs on an island that's only inhabited by penguins. So the strategy behind it all mystifies me a little bit. But Prime Minister Mark Carney essentially said today that the 80-year period where the U.S. embraced the mantle of global economic leadership is over. What are your thoughts when you hear the Prime Minister of Canada, even in the middle of an election, saying something about that, about the U.S.?
Well, it hurts my heart to contemplate the very real possibility that under Trump's leadership, we are giving up the mantle of being one of the world's most important humanitarian countries and economic leaders. The shutdown of our foreign aid programs around the world abruptly is causing dozens of countries to lose faith in our partnership. And these stupid tariffs, I mean, this is not smart economic policy. This is simple stupidity. To slap huge tariffs on uninhabited islands, to put double-digit tariffs on our closest allies and partners, but no more tariffs on Russia, does not seem to me to be smart security policy or economic policy.
Why do you think Russia was left off the list? A lot of people point to Russia, they point to North Korea, and then, you know, Canada feels like it was minding its own business and it's been dragged into a trade war. But some of the real bad actors globally are just left unscathed.
I think it suggests that this was done in a haphazard way. The economic analysis underlying these tariffs is very difficult to understand. It seems disorganized and incoherent, frankly. And Canada, let's be blunt, was doing more than just minding its own business. When Trump came into office, several ministers from the Canadian government and your very talented ambassador came and offered significant improved partnerships and investment on national security and on border security. Canada tried hard to meet the expectations and demands of the Trump administration, and that they nonetheless went ahead with tariffs, I think is a sad moment in our long and close partnership. Canada is one of our most trusted allies from around the world, the biggest trading partner of my state and many years of our country. And so I think this is not a great moment for U.S. leadership on economic issues or on security issues.
Okay, Senator, I know you have to go because there's votes and things happening in Senate, but one last quick question. The Prime Minister here said this is not going to end soon, that we need to be prepared for a sustained period of economic pain that will require sacrifice. What do you see as the horizon for when this may potentially be resolved? Could it take until the midterms, or could it be done before that?
I hope that it's resolved before then, because I think this is actually going to end up harming Americans and the American economy and American leadership more than it will ever help us. But President Trump is unpredictable. Look, if there's one quality he promised that he has overperformed on, it's that he'll be unpredictable. So it's very difficult to come up with any estimate of how long he might impose these costs on American consumers. But this new Trump tariff tax is going to be a memorable chapter in his second term as our president. I just hope that the cuts and the damage that it causes to Americans and American leadership are not too deep and not too lasting.
Senator Chris Coons, we appreciate you squeezing us in on a busy day. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, David.
U.S. President Donald Trump is defending his launch of a global trade war.
The markets are going to boom, the stock is going to boom, the country is going to boom, and the rest of the world wants to see, is there any way they can make a deal? They've taken advantage of us for many, many years. For many years, we've been at the wrong side of the ball, and I'll tell you what, I think it's going to be unbelievable.
Yesterday, Trump signed an executive order to impose reciprocal tariffs on 185 countries, something his team says will trigger a U.S. manufacturing renaissance.
Let Donald Trump run the global economy. He knows what he's doing. He's been talking about it for 35 years. You got to trust Donald Trump in the White House. That's why they put him there. Our markets are going to be up. And I understand that it's tough for the global markets. But our market, you should be betting on Donald Trump in the United States market. We are going to do much, much better.
Chuck Edwards is a Republican congressman from North Carolina, and he joins me now. Congressman, it's good to meet you. Thank you for joining us on the show today.
Yeah, certainly. Thanks for having me.
You've heard the optimism from the president and his cabinet officials, but U.S. companies had trillions of dollars of value wiped out on the stock market today. I mean, how is that making America wealthy again?
Well, we certainly see the emotion in the stock market. Let's be realistic. President Trump made his announcement yesterday. Not one penny of tariff has been put in place since yesterday. And yet the stock market reacted. It's all emotion. I've got great confidence that when folks see that the American economy will be rushing back, that we'll see the stock market respond.
You call it emotion, but it's global. And there seems to be, outside of the Republican Party, a pretty broad consensus, though, that these tariffs are going to slow global growth and maybe push us into a global recession and certainly cost jobs in the United States, Canada, upend trading relationships. That seems more serious than just emotion. Wouldn't you agree, Congressman?
No, I don't agree at all. I believe that President Trump, in his first term, effectively used tariffs as a negotiation tactic, and he built the United States' greatest economy. And I expect the same thing to happen this time. I would encourage folks around the globe to pull up to the table with Donald Trump and let's negotiate, listen to the things that he feels that the United States needs in return, and let's begin to create a world economy that works for everyone. I'm particularly interested in the one here in the United States.
I mean, I can't speak for the experience of the other countries around the globe, but in terms of pulling up to the table and talking to Donald Trump, that's exactly what Canada and Mexico did in his first term. When NAFTA was renegotiated to the USMCA, as you call it, CUSMA as we call it, and now that agreement that he negotiated and signed has been torn up and violated so many times, the trade relationship is effectively over as we know it. So, I mean, with that track record, Congressman, why would people trust this president to negotiate anything right now?
I believe that President Trump has shown that the United States has a great deal of leverage, and he's intending to use that leverage to help build America. And I know that he's a shrewd negotiator. He knows that any negotiation has to come with the result of a win-win. I've got full confidence that he's prepared to do that right now, and I'm willing to give him a chance.
But it takes, trust and multiple parties to negotiate. And looking at it from this side of the border, there was a lot of, tense negotiation that led to the renegotiation of the trade deal during Trump 1. And here we are in Trump 2, still under that deal, not due for review until next year. And your government has violated it, a half dozen times at minimum. So, I mean, do you understand why people may not trust your country right now in these conversations?
Oh, I understand there's a lot of speculation out there, a few skeptics, but let's give this a chance. The president made his announcement just yesterday. There's plenty of time for us to pull up to the table, have some dialogue that would work for all of us. And I've got a great deal of confidence. And again, I'm willing to give President Trump a chance. I think he's onto something. I know that he wants most of the other economies around the globe to prosper as well, but his primary interest is right here in the U.S., and I support him in his tactics.
Well, you say give this a chance, and he only did this yesterday. Already, since yesterday, a major auto plant in Windsor, Ontario, right next to Detroit, Michigan, they've announced a shutdown that's going to put thousands of people out of work. We've seen similar actions in the United States with more than 1,000 people working in the auto supply chains being put out of work. I mean, the expectation in the auto sector alone is that this will just keep cascading as the days go on. I mean, how long of a chance and how many jobs need to be lost before it's too long?
Well, I certainly think that it needs to be a greater chance than one day. The announcements that you're talking about are purely emotional. Uh, the automaker that you're referring to hasn't had 1 single cent of loss since a result of the announcement of those tariffs. I think they should be willing to give it a chance. They should be willing to see the American economy come roaring back. We've been our leadership has set U.S. interests aside for way too long, and I'm glad that we now have a president that's willing to stand up and negotiate and insist that Americans get a fair shot at manufacturing and creating jobs.
Well, I mean, it's emotional for those workers. I mean, it's thousands of workers who have lost their jobs, for at least a short-term period of time, but maybe longer if this goes on too long. I mean, Congressman, the markets globally are reacting. The businesses sectorally are reacting. I mean, what if Donald Trump is just wrong here? Because some of these tariffs were imposed on countries where there's no exports, no people. There is islands off the coast of Australia where there's nothing but penguins that have been tariffed under this plan yesterday. I mean, what if it isn't quite as thought out as you seem to believe it is, and the president's just got this wrong and it's going to mess up the global economy?
Well, I think time will tell, and I certainly believe that you're referring to incidents that are just purely emotional. There are some folks out there that are speculating that the sky is falling. I happen to be one that is very optimistic about what the president has done, and I believe if folks give him a chance, it's going to work out.
Why isn't Russia on the tariff list? Canada avoided the reciprocal tariffs, but there's a bunch of things on steel, aluminum, and auto. The United Kingdom, Europe, all the people who fought with the U.S. in the major wars of the last 100 years, the whole G7 and NATO are now facing tariffs, but Russia is not. How do you explain that?
Yeah, the president didn't ask me specifically which countries we should impose tariffs on and those that we should not. That would be a question that I would have to ask his administration.
Okay, well, Congressman, we're in the middle of an election here in Canada, and there's a universal, I would say, position by the major political parties that the relationship between Canada and the United States has changed forever because of what has happened since Donald Trump has become president. That we need to look away from the United States on issues of security, on issues of defense, on issues of economic cooperation. People are canceling vacations to your country, not doing cross-border shopping trips. Are you worried at all that even if this is emotional, people can make emotional decisions that have long-term, lasting structural impacts, that you've alienated your biggest market and most immediate ally on the continent with this move?
I believe, again, folks are way premature in statements like that. I believe you're way too premature in statements like that. I believe that most of the world would not agree with you. I've been to Canada. I'll certainly come to Canada again. I bet there's a lot of folks from Canada that will continue to visit the United States. I run into them all the time. This president has been in office for less than 100 days. And yeah, he's making some bold decisions. Sometimes bold decisions create change. Change always creates a bit of angst. I think we should be patient. We should give this an opportunity to work. And I've got full confidence that it's going to work for the United States and that our president, the great negotiator, the guy that wrote The Art of the Deal, knows for one party to succeed, the other party has to succeed as well. And I'm hoping that the folks in Canada will give him a chance.
Well, I think Canadians would say they did that the first time around with the renegotiation of NAFTA, and now he's reneging, right? And it doesn't feel like a win-win is on the table here. It's, he's made jokes about, or comments, I don't know if it's a joke, about annexation, ridiculing the prime minister as the governor, saying he doesn't need our economy, saying he's subsidizing us and we're freeloading. I mean, none of that sounds like win-win to me, Congressman. So help me understand why we shouldn't be emotional and have these premature, in your words, reaction when it's been a lot of insults and kind of threats up to this point.
Yeah, well, you're using the word feel. The word feel is an emotion. I think that you should look at the facts and let's let your government and my government have a conversation on the things that we each need specifically from the other and work for a win-win deal. I believe firmly that's exactly what President Trump is looking to do.
Okay, and Congressman, the last question. I mean, what are your constituents saying to you? I mean, prices could go up, jobs could be lost, there could be an inflationary spike here, economic slowdowns, at least in this transition, because even the president and his people say there's going to be pain in the transition. I mean, what's the pain tolerance of people in North Carolina for this?
Well, President Trump was very clear when he was asking to be our president that he would be imposing tariffs on other countries as a negotiating tactic to help build America back even stronger. He had a sweeping victory across the country. To me, that says that the American people are firmly behind him, including those right here in my district.
Congressman Chuck Edwards from North Carolina, thank you for joining us today, sir. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.